Hello VC, Happy New Year. It's that vinyl tag time of year again, and Rob Walker has submitted 20 questions. You've probably seen dozens of these videos already, so I don't need to explain what they're about. But yeah, some interesting questions here, and I'm going to show you a bunch of stuff that hopefully you'll find interesting. And we start off with question 1, which is my favourite purchase of 2023. Now, this isn't anything rare. It isn't anything that was hard to get. It's just an album that I love. I owned it previously on CD, and I treated myself to a copy of Audio Slave's debut album on vinyl. I love this album. I loved Soundgarden. I love Chris Cornell's solo material. He is sorely missed, and for a long time I found it difficult to listen to his music because it just made me sad rather than happy, which is not what music's meant to do. But this album, I love it, and really good pressing. Music on vinyl copy. So there you go. Favourite album 2023. Question number 2 is the last album I purchased in 2023. And this was a few days before New Year. Local charity shop. I picked up Any Troubles Live at the Venue album. Didn't even know this existed, to be honest. And when I saw it, I thought, oh, okay, that'll be worth picking up. Particularly as the date on it is 1980. So it's really just their early material when they were true power pop and hadn't kind of diverged into more sort of artsy, new wave sort of a style. Can thoroughly recommend this. It's a cracking sounding record, it really is. It sounds like it's a really good gig. So, Any Trouble, bit of power pop. My last purchase of 2023. Then question 3 was they released 2 albums or more in the same year. And there's a ton of these to choose from. But I have plumped for one of my favourite bands who released 2 albums in 1978. It's Judas Priest. They released Stained Class and Killing Machine, which was called Hellbent for Leather in the States, because obviously calling an album Killing Machine is far more dangerous than people running around with guns. So yeah, there you go. 2 brilliant albums. This was the first Judas Priest album I ever owned. Loved it when I bought this as a teenager, and I even had that album cover painted on the back of my denim cutoff at the time. So 2 superb albums. Then question 4 was it, if you could only listen to music for 1 decade, which decade would it be? And of course, like everyone says, this is really difficult, but it's not that difficult. Because if I could only choose 1 decade, it would have to be the 1970s, because the quality of music that was coming out then, you had the tail end of psychedelia, you had prog rock developing, you had hard rock, heavy metal, punk, new wave, reggae, funk, disco, you name it, it was there. And a few select items from the 70s to illustrate my point. Pink Floyd, Black Sabbath, Queen, Led Zeppelin, The Police, and Sex Pistols. So I think that's a fair visual sort of arguments for why the 70s would be my decade of choice. Okay, question number 5, I think. Yeah, show an LP by a Manchester band, and I have gone for the Happy Mondays. Great band. I was working in a record store in the late 80s when this album came out, and the whole sort of Manchester baggy scene was happening, when bands like them and Stone Roses and The Farm and In Spiral Carpets seemed to be putting out 12-inch singles constantly, and we could not unbox them fast enough to sell them in the record store. And this is just a great album. It's actually, to me, it sounds even better these days than it did back then. I was far more into my hard rock at the time, and I appreciated this, but now I realise what a great album it was. You know what tracks you got on here: Kinky Afro, Step On, Loose Fit, great stuff. I mean, you've got your typical kind of singer who can't sing really, and Shaun Ryder, but then, you know, he's following good footsteps. There's a few of those out there, you know, Neil Young, Bob Dylan, who I love. And it doesn't matter. It's the personality. And there's some great musicianship on here, some great guitar. Really superb album. And interesting artwork as well. So this is Thrills, Pills and Bellyaches. And next question is question 6, my most listened to artist in 2023. Well, I'm going to base this on vinyl because what I listen to on Spotify is often very different to what I listen to at home. But on vinyl, the artist I listened to most was Tom Petty, and Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. And yeah, this is his Into the Great Wide Open album. Great album from 1991, I think it was. Produced by Jeff Lynne. Tom Petty, great stuff. Can't get enough of him at the moment. Question number 7 is show 7 7-inch singles, either ones bought in 2023 or a random selection. Well, I was going to say I don't really collect 7-inch singles, and then I saw how many I've got and I thought, well, it's a bit hard to claim that really. But I don't go out of my way to buy them. I probably have bought half a dozen, 10 maybe this year or last year. But instead I just thought I'd grab a random selection from the nearest box of singles, and ones with nice picture sleeves. So a real eclectic collection here. We've got Dr. Feelgood's Milk and Alcohol on white vinyl. Classic single. I've got Ike and Tina Turner doing covers of Come Together and Honky Tonk Women. UB40's 1 in 10. Great track. Great British reggae band. This one's a bit special. It's a double A-side single. It's the TV themes from The New Avengers and The Professionals, which just takes me right back to being sort of 11, 12 years old and watching this stuff on TV. Particularly love The Professionals. And great tunes. I think, yeah, by Laurie Johnson. I think these are the original recording. I'm pretty sure they are. They certainly sound like it to me. But great single. Then I have a French copy of Video Killed the Radio Star by Buggles, which was a big hit in the UK. Here's one from my youth. Tubeway Army, Our Friends Electric. Always loved Gary Newman. And Tubeway Army were fantastic. And Slade's How Does It Feel, which for me is one of the greatest rock ballads of all time, and just shows that Noddy Holder could sing in a real sensitive way as well, not just belt it out. Superb single. This is a track that's on their Slade in Flame album, which is well worth checking out. Okay, next question is, who's coming to the party? 4 people from the music industry, dead or alive, that ask round to a dinner party. And I think Rob Walker had said the people should attend when they're age 40, if I heard right, but I think I'm going to break that rule. My 4 people, and it was tough to narrow them down, would be Geddy Lee, singer and bass player from Rush, and in part of that's because I just went to see him doing a sort of Q&A session at the Barbican in London, and the guy's had a fascinating life. I'm reading his autobiography at the moment, and he's also a wine connoisseur, so getting him round for a dinner party would probably be a very good idea. Having trouble with my words today. Then I have Andy Summers from The Police, because his autobiography is probably the best music autobiography I've ever read. I read it a few years ago, and I keep meaning to reread it because it's a brilliant story. It's so well told. Obviously, you know, everyone knows him from The Police, but he played with Eric Burden as well, and Dan Tallion's Chariot, and he's played with Robert Fripp, and he seems to have known everybody who's anybody throughout the 60s and 70s. So he would have some great stories to tell. I'd invite Kate Bush, but not when she was 40, preferably when she was 20. She would have some great stories as well. And I was watching Jack Vinyl Martini's vinyl tag, and he was saying you've got to have a woman because otherwise it becomes too much of a sausage party, I think he called it. And I thought that's an interesting term. So yeah, to avoid it being a sausage party, Kate Bush would be in there. And my final choice would be Whispering Bob Harris, the DJ and Old Grey Whistle Test presenter, because I love his soft tones, his reserved manner. And again, I went to see him and Danny Baker in conversation at the theatre a couple of years ago, and they've got some amazing stories between the two of them. But Bob Harris has met everybody. He knows everything about music. I just think it'd be a fascinating evening with him there. So question 9 is, sadly, we lost them in 2023. Well, this is there's plenty of people to choose from, but this one's a bit of a personal one for me. And I'm going to go with John Gosling from the Kinks. And I don't know whether I've ever told this story before, but the first band I was in as a teenager, the bass player in the band was John Gosling's son. So I met John many times, and he's always a charming, gentle man. You sometimes had to coax stories out of him about his time in the Kinks, and it was a bittersweet experience for him. He had a big falling out with Ray Davies, I know that, but great guy, and produced some great music with the Kinks. I mean, this album, one of my favourites by them. And what we've got on here, Lola, obviously, which is possibly my favourite Kinks tune, and Ape Man. And if you ever see the Ape Man video, it's John Gosling who drew the short straw and was dressed up in the gorilla costume on that video. So yeah, John Gosling, sadly missed. Question 10 is, if I could only listen to music from one country, which country would it be? Well, at the risk of repeating myself, it would be England. And that wouldn't be an easy decision, because I love so much American music. I love German music, Polish music, Australian bands, all over. But again, English music, the thought of never listening to these bands again would just be a little too much to bear, I think. I rest my case. Question 11 is my VC discoveries. So which VC channels did I discover in 2023? There've been a fair few, but 3 that really stick out for me are Take 444, who I think a few people have mentioned, and I can't remember the guy's name, but his channel is fantastic. He's English guy with an amazing collection of psychedelia, and he's doing an A to Z run through his collection at the moment. I think he's up to about episode 10, and he's still only on the letter B, so he's got a lot of psychedelia in his collection. Then there is another English guy called George Pryor, who I think lives down the south coast, sort of Southampton area. Again, great taste in music, a lot of prog, a lot of psychedelia, some post-punk, a lot of stuff that really floats my boat. And there's a young guy out of the States whose channel is called Sorin Vinyl. And it's just really heartening to see basically a teenager collecting vinyl from the 60s and 70s and being so knowledgeable about it. So those are my 3 favourite discoveries. Then question 12 is a record I bought when I was a teenager. There were dozens, hundreds. But I thought this was fairly representative of my taste. The first Boston album. Now, I didn't buy it when it came out. This came out, I think, 76. And I must have bought this I did buy this in 1981, so I was 13 years old. And at the time, this seemed like some mystical ancient artifact. But it was only like 5 years old. And it's amazing how, at that age, music from a few years ago just seems like from another era. But this still continues to be played by me to this day, 40 whatever years, 45 years, 40, not doing my maths very well there, 40 odd years later. Love this album. And yeah, it's got everything I love. It's got soaring vocals, it's got amazing guitar playing, beautiful production, Hammond organ like you wouldn't believe, and one of my favourite tracks of all time, foreplay/long time. And question 13 is to show some funk or soul. And you can't go wrong with it. Stevie Wonder, and Inner Visions is my favourite Stevie Wonder album. It's got some classics on like Living for the City, Higher Ground, and probably one of my favourite album closers of all time, He's Mr. Know-It-All, which I absolutely love. Stevie Wonder. Then question 14 is show a record that everyone has and one that nobody has. Well, the one that everyone has is Thriller, and I know everyone has it because I'm not even much of a Michael Jackson fan and I own it. So, but no, you can't go wrong with this album really. But one that nobody has, or is unlikely to have, is this, Pookie Snackenburger, which was actually the name of a Channel 4 TV show in the sort of mid-80s. And they tended to do kind of episode-long spoofs of other TV shows, of music genres, that kind of thing. And they did one spoof called, I think it's called Iron Lung. And it's a bit like Bad News or Spinal Tap. It was better than Bad News, wasn't as good as Spinal Tap, but still pretty damn good. So it's a heavy metal band, and I don't know whether you can see there. That's what the band looked like. So they were rocking that kind of, looked like Motley Crue fronted by Ozzy Osbourne kind of a look. But the music was really good, and there's a couple of tracks off that on here. Heavy Metal Life, not the greatest title, but a decent song, and the Lost Canticle of Beelzebub, which is a fantastic, dark and doomy heavy metal track. So I bet there's not many of you out there have got this. Then where are we? Question 15. She's Great, a female artist I bought in 2023. And I managed to pick up an original UK pressing of Ode to Billie Joe by Bobby Gentry. I'm a big fan of Bobby Gentry. This album is pretty hard to get these days. I remember I used to see this in charity shops all the time, but that was before I knew who she was, and I assumed she was just one of that kind of brigade of 70s country artists who are all a little bit, I suppose I lumped her in with those kind of maudlin, redneck, rhinestone wearing kind of country artists who don't do an awful lot for me. But Bobby Gentry is fantastic. Barely even consider a country, to be honest. It's real gothic country, if it's country at all. And the title track, Ode to Billie Joe, is what you need to listen to if you want to know what she's about, really. So there you go. An original, UK original of Ode to Billie Joe. Next question. My favourite video that I made in 2023 and a favourite video that I watched. Well, I guess my favourite is probably one of the first ones I did in 2023, which was my Vinyl Finds awards show video. So if you haven't seen that, check it out. I'll be doing another one for my favourite finds of 2023 pretty soon. And favourite video that I watched, well, anything that Matt Sands and Sam the Psych Professor do. And they've not been doing many videos this year, so it's always a treat when they do. But it's their videos really that first got me into making my own videos for the VC. So yeah, always delighted to see them and hope that they put out more videos in 2024. Okay, number 17 is show a 90s classic. Unlike a lot of people, I think the 90s was a fantastic decade for music. Some people think that music died after 1979, but Pearl Jam's debut, 10. Love this record. I mean, for me it was diminishing returns with Pearl Jam from this album onwards, but this is an all-time classic. Again, this is a UK original from 1991. And I mean, you all know this record, but what always surprises me about it is how much, in places, it reminds me of Peter Gabriel era Genesis. And I know half of you probably think, what? But listen to the first track on side 2, Oceans, and tell me that doesn't sound like Peter Gabriel singing that song. Fantastic record. So, Pearl Jam. And question number 18 is, I could walk into the cover. Well, I had a couple of thoughts about this. Yeah, it'd be tempting to walk onto some sort of fantasy scene on a Roger Dean album cover, but I thought it'd be much more fun to kind of photo bomb a record sleeve. So I thought perhaps I could appear on this. I could kind of walk in wearing nothing but a pair of Speedos, lay down a beach towel and catch some rays in amongst the guys in Motorhead. Or an alternative, it's always amazed me that the censors decided that having a toilet on the album sleeve of If You Can Believe Your Eyes and Ears by Mamas and Papas was in some way offensive. So what I'd like to do is remove this little banner here and appear on the sleeve, sat on the toilet with my trousers around my ankles and have a dump. I might need to crack the window a bit, but yeah, make it worth banning if you're going to do it at all. Next up, feels like a greatest hits, but isn't. AC/DC Back in Black. I know every song on this album like the back of my hand, and they did release singles off it, but I can almost, I don't know, I'm not sure I can remember which they were because they all sound like singles, but I do know that I bought You Shook Me All Night Long and Rock and Roll Ain't Noise Pollution when they came out on singles, but you got Back in Black, Hell's Bells, Shoot to Thrill, Give a Dog a Bone, Have a Drink on Me. It is basically a greatest hits album. AC/DC Back in Black. And the final question is, it turns 50 in 2024, so an album that was released in 1974, and we are spoilt for choice because it was a great year for music, but I'm going with Kimono My House by Sparks. I've been on a real Sparks trip recently. Love this album. The lead-off song on this town ain't big enough for both of us. I remember that being on Top of the Pops, and as a little kid just thinking, who are these weird guys? They're kind of like the art rock Cheap Trick, in that you've got a pretty boy and you've got a weird looking geek, except this weird looking geek has a Hitler moustache and plays keyboards with one finger and looks like he's on another planet or from another planet. Brilliant album, great band. I saw footage of them playing Glastonbury this year or last year, and they haven't lost it. Still superb entertainers, and I think a lot of people are starting to I was going to say rediscover them, but discover them for the first time, and well deserved. Great album, great band. So that's it. That's the vinyl tag for this year. Thanks to Rob for coming up with the questions, and I will be back soon because I want to do my end of 2023 awards show, and also I've recently been on a bit of a trip up to Manchester, which was supposed to be to see the in-laws or my mother-in-law, but I spent quite a lot of time in record shops, so I've got a few things from there to show. So until then, see you soon. Bye for now.